Welcome, everyone, to the Twin Cities Jewish Film Festival and tonight's film, Aulcie, which is also Walter's pick. I'm Riv Shapiro. I'm the arts and culture producer at the Minnesota JCC and the producing director of this festival. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Walter Elias, without whom none of this festival would have happened. So I'm eternally grateful to Walter. He will also be moderating tonight's discussion. Walter Elias is a retired healthcare consultant. His involvement in the Twin Cities Jewish Film Festival started more than 20 years ago. Over the years, he has been the volunteer curator, film selection committee chair, festival co-director, traffic manager, and liaison to distributors. He lives in St. Louis Park with his wife, 2 children, and 2 grandchildren. Thank you, Walter.
Well, thank you, Rib, and thank you for a magnificent film festival so far with still plenty to go. I'm so proud and I'm just quelling to be doing this evening. Not only Walter's pick, but a Danny Menken film. I couldn't be happier. So let me go around and introduce the members of the panel. First, our filmmaker, Danny Menken, who is a 2-time Israeli Academy Award winner. Danny Menken's award-winning narrative and documentary films include Picture of His Life, On the Map, of course, Aulcie, Dolphin Boy, 39 Pounds of Love, and Is That You, which we happen to have shown as a Walter's pick in 2004. His movies have been sold worldwide, including to Disney and HBO. Menken is an internationally renowned speaker and film juror at international festivals around the world, as well as a film professor at universities and colleges in Israel and in the US. He co-founded Hey Jude Productions. Menken is known for exploring the courage of humanity through personal stories. Danny currently lives with his family in Los Angeles. I guess it does take some courage to do that. Live in Los Angeles. That was a little joke, sorry. Professor Oren Gross is the Irving Younger Professor of Law at the University of Minnesota Law School. He is an internationally recognized expert in the areas of international law and national security law. Professor Gross holds an LLB degree, magna cum laude, from Tel Aviv University, also a Master of Laws and a Doctor of Juridical Sciences degree from Harvard Law School. He has taught and held visiting positions in leading institutions such as the Harvard Law School and Princeton University. He is the author of numerous articles and 2 award-winning books and is a member of the American Law Institute. That's going to be tough to top, Amir. Amir Bronstein was born in Haifa right after the Six-Day War in 1967. He had a typical Israeli upbringing with basketball, youth group activities, and a lot of beach time. Amir joined the Nahal Brigade of the IDF, spent most of his service in Lebanon and then in Gaza City. He moved to New York City in 1989 and became one of us, the Frozen Chosen, around 1993. Amir is married with 2 children and a grandchild, and he still spends as much time as possible by the beach. And offline, Amir, you can tell me where I can find that beach here. So let me start off. I'll take the prerogative of being the moderator here and start off with the first question, and that'll be to Danny. Uh, Danny, you already made one film called On the Map about Israel's victory in the Basketball European Cup in 1977. A very successful film. Tell us a little bit about why you did On the Map, and then how did that evolve into Aulcie?
Mhm. All right. So first and foremost, thank you, Walter, again. I'm honored to be Walter's pick. And I know it's an institution already. And I'm pleased to be back with all of you and all of the fans of the festival. And speaking of fans, these guys were my childhood heroes. We're talking about Tal Brody, Mickey Berkovich, Aulcie Perry. So my generation grew up on them. So when I became sport reporter and later on a film director, I knew that I want to bring those stories to life. I was not aware that there are so many stories that have not been told and so many footage that has never been seen. And when I made the movie On the Map, I was approached by Channel 8 in Israel, the documentary channel, to just research about it. And I learned so much about the team, about Tal Brody. And of course, I always knew about the story of Aulcie Perry because everybody knew about his story. Now, I told them the biggest story is Aulcie, but Aulcie was not ready at that time. Aulcie was not ready to share about all the hard time he was going through, what really happened the day that he didn't show up, and what happened on those 10 years that he was in jail. So we focused on the map on 1977, on Tal Brody's story of somebody who's given up on the NBA, comes to Israel, and in the last year of his career, changes the country by beating the Russians during the Cold War and saying we're on the map, not only in basketball, but in everything, in a statement that for everyone captured exactly what everyone felt. So that was On the Map. It was much more than a basketball story. But when I finished the film, and it was so successful in the United States, I told everyone, with all due respect to 1977, there was a bigger story, and that's the story of Aulcie, because it really crosses race, religion. There is a love story here. There is a crime element here. There is a sport drama here. There is everything. There is a family telenovela. Everything you just want to ask as a movie director. So all I need to do is something pretty small, and that is convince Aulcie to share and to trust me in making this film. It was not easy. It took him time. And I'm happy that at the end of the day, he put his trust in me, and I was the one telling that story, because right now we're about to open the film theatrically in LA. If you have friends in LA, some people still live in LA, Walter, and and we are going to show it at the UN Film Festival this Thursday. I just came back from the East Coast, and people are excited. And it's not only the Jewish community that is very proud, because as you can see in the film, Aulcie has become a Jew, but also the African American community that is embracing his story.
Thanks, Danny. So Amir, take us back to 1977. Describe for us the run-up to the game itself, and the aftermath. What were your personal experiences?
So I was a 10-year-old kid, and I was a basketball nut. I huge fan of the game, and just by virtue, just like anybody else in Israel at that time, unless you lived in Cholon, you were a big Maccabi Tel Aviv fan. So, and the Israelis would know what I'm talking about. But I remember, just like there was a snippet in the movie, Danny, that it shows a kind of a picture of a typical Israeli family in black and white, watching a game, neighbors coming. That was our house. That was our apartment. My dad was moonlighted as a sports reporter for a local newspaper in north of Haifa. It was called Het Hakrayot, and not that he needed any of the reason, but he dragged me to just about every sporting event that was out there. And in the mid '70s, when Tal Brody came, and then Aulcie Perry came, and obviously before that Jim Bortright and Lou Silver. That when I played basketball, just a little nugget. When I was a kid, I was horizontally challenged. I mean, I played, but I couldn't jump very high, so I was guarded by much taller players that could jump a lot higher. So I developed a shot that was kind of like Lou Silver's in Maccabi Tel Aviv, and he used to shoot kind of over his head, and that was my shot for the longest time. Every coach tried to correct it and couldn't. That was my shot for many years. So I was just a kid that liked basketball, and if you like basketball and you like Maccabi Tel Aviv and you're Israeli, you couldn't have not liked Aulcie Perry and him and Tal Brody. Kind of really, as for a kid, they literally put you on the map, because our world was really small, and just we felt fascination. He's a big part of the reason why I played basketball my whole life.
Thanks, Amir. Oren, I've seen it written that the '77 European Cup victory changed Israel forever. Do you agree? Tell us how you experienced this.
So I think undoubtedly so. I will just comment on Amir. I think that even the people in Cholon rooted for Maccabi. Maccabi was truly a team where a whole country was behind. I think there's several phases to the changes of that country. Some of them are Aulcie's story, some of them are beyond Aulcie's story. So just to put things in perspective, and Maccabi wins for the first time the European Championship in 1977. If you think back to that decade, right, it's 4 years after the Yom Kippur War, the most devastating war, certainly in recent Israeli memory. But it's not just the Yom Kippur War, because the 70s, from the very early years, certainly to the mid 70s, were years of governmental corruption. We had a minister, a prime minister, we had heads, mayors of towns, we had some of the most powerful people in Israel, all indicted with corruption. And the sense was that it was endemic, that it was everywhere, and people felt a little bit of kind of at a loss, right? That the Zionist dream, that what Israel was about was somewhat lost in the process. And Israel, to some extent, was kind of losing its way. Mm-hmm. And so when Maccabi showed up, right, it was not only kind of a sports heroes, and these were heroes. We all worshiped them. I was 12 years old at the time, and they were heroes. But they gave us something that we thought was lost, and that was the sense of hope. And I actually would start before the win. The win, I mean, everybody of our generation, whenever you say 78, 77, we remember exactly what we were talking about. But there's actually a game that to me was even more important. And that is February 17, 1977, when Maccabi plays against CSKA, the kind of the jewel, the crown jewel of the Soviet empire. They play in Virton in Belgium. It's the height of the Cold War. It's the height of the fight of let my people go, let the Jews out of the Soviet Union. And Maccabi, against all odds, wins against CSKA 91 to 79. That was, for us, a miracle. The fact, I mean, everything that, in a sense, that happened after that was a fringe benefit. Certainly the victory, kind of the sense that we actually can do that, right? And soon thereafter, Israel wins also the Eurovision Song Contest, so we feel all of a sudden good about ourselves. That was something that was not, something to be taken lightly. I think that every Israeli, certainly of my generation, Amir's generation, that generation who watched the game, remembers the nail-biting few seconds at the end when it was not clear whether Maccabi is going to clinch it or not. It seemed that they're going to, and then kind of they let it slip. And all of Israel, I mean, you could feel the electricity throughout Israel. I managed to, my mother had a very expensive vase on the table. And I remember in the few seconds left, again, the 12-year-old, I went zoom straight to the TV to give instructions to the players. I went through the table, I smashed the vase. I couldn't care less because, the players needed to get those instructions and they listened to me and they won.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to instruct them. It must have made the big difference. Let me get back to a question to our filmmaker. What was the? This is a kind of a interesting question. What was the collaboration like between you and Aulcie in the filmmaking process? How did you share creative input in telling Aulcie's story through his own words?
It took me time to convince Aulcie, as I mentioned before, to make this film. Before Oren helped us to win the cup in 1977, there was no real basketball in Israel. So Aulcie has made a big difference on the team. And when he came, it really not only changed the team, and as we show at the movie On the Map, it changed the country metaphorically. It brought them from one generation to the other one. They were not the underdog anymore. But it also changed Aulcie. He's falling in love with Tammy. He's becoming a Jew, Elisha ben Avram. We even talk a little bit about this small operation that he had to do over there. And then they win again the European Championship at 1981, but they're not the underdog anymore. They are now the favorites. And at the peak of his career, when you cannot go higher than this. He's the power couple with Tammy Ben-Ami. He's a huge celebrity in Israel, and he's a basketball star. Then he's starting to split. He's starting to take drugs. He started to be addicted to painkillers, and then from the highest mountain, he goes to the deepest valley of his life. And those were the things that he did not want to talk about. So I was kind of chasing after him for some time. And then at some point, he had some health issues, and I visited him in the hospital. And he told me about the daughter that he had from a relationship with another woman, not somebody that you've seen in the film, from another woman that he met when he was in parole, in jail. And the reason he told me that he's open to tell his story now is that he wanted his daughter to know about everything that he went through in his life from his words and not from Google or Wikipedia. So that was where I felt like, I can collaborate with Aulcie and in many ways tell the story in his words to his daughter. And while he's looking for his daughter, trying to tell her about his unbelievable life story, he's also telling it to us, because we, the fans, we really wanted to know what happened to him.
Oh, thanks, Danny. Here's a little bit more of a not a softball, a little bit more of a hardball question. You how you've done a lot of interviews about films and about Aulcie. Probably 50, 100 interviews. I'm just wondering, to the new filmmakers in our audience, can you help them with advice about how to conduct the best possible interview to reflect their film and market it?
I mean, I can tell you, for me, when I'm making films like On the Map, like Dolphin Boy or Is That You? I need to touch subjects that I love and I enjoy. And then, I bring my passion. And with Aulcie, it was easy, like Oren and Amir mentioned, you see people from other places and a little bit even different ages around that time. We were all glued to the TV. So Oren broke the vase. I remember my dad lifting me up on his shoulder, and Amir remembers that. So we were all in different places, but we all remember that. So there was some kind of magnet to that team and to what it did to the country. So my work as a filmmaker was to try to communicate what we felt as an audience to the people that will watch my movie, to try to put it all together and to excite people. And that will be my best advice to other filmmakers, to tap to their passion. And I think passion is the best marketing in the world. That's my two little marketing advice. And I will not buy marketing advice from Danny Menken, but still, because you asked, this is my advice.
I think it's a perfect answer, Danny. Thank you. So, Oren, Aulcie is really a film about redemption. And boy, this is really something that is so relevant in our world today. Can you discuss how the Aulcie Perry story of redemption made some kind of an impact on you personally?
Well, again, I think that first of all, to some extent it's a universal story, right? The story of a man or a person at some point fighting his or her or their demons, and triumphing through the process. And to some extent, I mean, this is a story of a person that we kind of knew or thought we knew through the media at the time. And again, remember, there was only one channel in Israel, so there weren't we all saw the same thing. But to some extent, other athletes have struggled with that, and not only athletes. I think that what adds to that story, and what I think, again, going back, and Danny mentioned this, kind of if you will, the Israeli moment behind this that really touched all of us, was not only his soft shot. I mean, Aulcie Perry was Kevin Durant before Kevin Durant was born, right? So not only that, but his smile. I remember pictures of him in IDF uniform. Obviously, his relationship with Tammy Ben-Ami. I mean, the newspapers were all over the place. And again, in a country where race in the American sense was not an issue, that was, right? And it was really not an issue, right, in Israel, but it was kind of our introduction to that. So all of these things, right, made the story of Aulcie Perry a very Israeli story. I mean, and which is ironic. So here is this American guy, and his story, in a sense, is a quintessential Israeli story. It was everybody's story at the time.
Amir, you want to take, thank you, Oren. Amir, you want to take a crack at that question?
I'm going back to the nuts and bolts of the game. Aulcie was obviously the end result, the redemption story is phenomenal. The way it was portrayed by Danny is phenomenal. It was a great movie, great story, just a great story that was shared by a lot of people that didn't know the story itself. And it's a story with a lot of hope at the end, which is really, really good. But I'm going back to my observation again, going back to the 70s as a kid. Aulcie was monumental. He was probably one of the first. He wasn't Tal Brody or everybody remember Barry Leibovich that played in Hapoel Tel Aviv. He wasn't a returned or a Jew that makes Aliyah. He was an American guy that came to play basketball because he was good at it, and he was good at it in an environment that was that embraced him, and he thrived on it. He opened the door to, gosh, 40, 50 years later. Look at the league now. Look at all kinds of leagues in Israel now. I mean, he was one of the first ones to establish that kind of professionalism in sports. That was my take on Aulcie Perry again. Going back to the basketball.
Well, thanks a lot, Amir. Let me finish off with one last question for Danny. So take a good song and make it better. What do those lyrics mean to you, and how do they apply to Aulcie?
All right, so I was not only a big fan of the Fab Five, Maccabi Tel Aviv, I was also a big fan of the Fab Four, the Beatles, even though they broke up a little bit before I was born. And for me, it's something that really described my work. The line of the Beatles from the song Hey Jude, take a sad song and make it better. So that's why I have my production company, Hey Jude Productions. I'm gonna share also with the guys my website. So if anyone wants to watch our past films, they're welcome to come to our website and support us. Also, I want to mention that if anyone is interested in a signed Maccabi Tel Aviv official basketball, signed by not other than Aulcie Perry, Tal Brody, and myself. I had to have Tal Brody and Aulcie Perry to increase the value and myself to decrease the value a little bit. But you'll get an email from the JCC to follow, and this will support your work and our work as well. So this is what we're trying to do at Hey Jude Productions, just bring inspirational stories. And I don't think of a better story to inspire me as a filmmaker than the story of Aulcie, because of all the unbelievable elements it had. And I don't think as a scriptwriter, I could have invented it. And the fact that it really happened in front of our eyes as audience was a wonderful inspiration. Also, I would say that in today's world, if I can bring a positive story of an African-American from Israel that is really falling in love with the country, and the country is falling in love with him, and that will be something that people will recognize and know about our country, about Israel, because I mean, I think for many of us, that's what we know about Israel. I mean, we are all, I think if I'm allowed to say, are in love with Israel in many ways. So if I can bring those positive stories from our country, I hope I've done a little bit in serving as an Israeli as well.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Amir, Oren. I think a wonderful panel discussion. We touched on so many points. And as Danny said, this film has a little bit of everything. It's, I think, the crowning achievement of Danny's career, which has many, many more films to go. Thank you, Danny, for Aulcie and for your appearance. And thanks to the JCC and the RIV and to the entire staff for putting on this wonderful festival. And now, again, thanks. I'll turn it back over to Riv.
Thank you so much, Walter. And it was a great pick. I'd also love to thank our wonderful Film Fest sponsors. Their generous support allows us to elevate Jewish voices and experiences through film and allows us to bring this incredible Jewish cultural arts offering to the broadest possible audience. If you've been moved by the film, by this film or other films in our festival this year, I encourage you to consider supporting the Film Fest or our other wide range of cultural arts at the JCC by making a gift at givetothej.org. And as Donnie mentioned, we'll be sending out an email to all of you who got tickets for Aulcie to see if you can win this signed basketball and support all of our work that we're doing. So thank you to all of our panelists and thank you to all of those watching for supporting this festival and being part of the dialogue by joining us today.
Oh wait, I just drove, so one of my kills went away. Shoot. Oh god, oh god.